Welcome friends, my name is Alvaro, I'm designer of DragonStrike, and I want to give you a quick tutorial of how to play DragonStrike using our TTS module here. Now in this introductory mission, you can play 1 player versus 1 or 2 versus 2. Play 1v1, you'll be managing 2 dragons each. Play 2v2, you'll be managing 1 dragon each. The objective of the game will be to capture the caravan and take it home, but we'll explain a little more of that in a minute. Let's start by what do? You open our TTS module. First thing you should do is choose a side. I'm going to choose color, and I'm going to go red. You have to have at least 1 player on each side of the game. And by choosing this side, I chose the baddies. I chose red dragon and white dragon, the chromatic dragons. The other side has copper and bronze for the metallic dragons. So once both sides chose their side, now you're going to grab the card, which is the mission that you're going to play, and you're going to place it in its starting point here. This is a caravan that is trying to escape without being snagged by either of the players, and both players are trying to get their dragon to snag the caravan and bring it home. So first thing you do, you choose sides. Second thing you do, you put the card. Third thing will be to roll to see who starts with the edge, which we're going to explain a little bit later what that is. Both players are going to roll 5 dice. And they're going to see who rolls more successes. I rolled only 1 success. We don't know what my other player would have rolled, but let's assume that I won and I got the edge. So now the good news is the edge is a good thing to have, which we'll see later. But the bad news is, as the player with the edge, you get to deploy first. You're going to deploy on your first 2 hex lines there. I'm going to put red here. You can face in any direction. I'm going to put white here. This is my initial deployment with my 2 dragons. And now we go to the other side. We're always going to call the side with the edge is the sharp side. The other side is the blunt side. So we go to the blunt side, and we have copper, bronze here. We're going to place him there, and then we're going to add copper. We're going to put him there, side by side. So now both players have deployed. You have chosen the mission, you have put the caravan, and you have both deployed your dragons. You are ready to play. And so we'll start the first turn by putting next turn. And I'm going to explain you the different phases of 1 turn. You can see here that you have planning, flight, situation, and combat. I'm going to explain 1 turn, and that should be enough for you to be ready to play the game. So the first phase is planning. In the planning phase, you're going to turn around the sun timer, and that gives 4 minutes for every player in this game to choose the action for their maneuver for the dragon or dragons that they control. And you can hover over your dragon and see what all the different maneuvers do. And don't worry, because the other player is not seeing what you're seeing on the board. So I'm going to take this guy, is going to do this. And you see, when I click on the card, it automatically chooses that maneuver and places it in the control board of the dragon that it corresponds. And this guy is going to do this maneuver. Boom. So I clicked and it chose both. I'm going to go to the other side and actually choose the maneuvers for my opponents. This guy is going to choose, and it's going to go fast. And then this guy is going to choose, he's going to go slow. Okay, so with that, you've finished the planning phase. Everyone has chosen their maneuver. If someone hadn't chosen the maneuver, you would do the straight line maneuver that corresponds with the current speed of the dragon. So dragons come into the game with speed 3, you would be doing this maneuver. So if someone didn't put a card, that's the maneuver they had there. But always try to choose a maneuver. Don't let the default hit you. So with the planning phase finished, we're going to move to the flight phase, where we actually execute the maneuvers of the dragons. We're going to start by the side with the edge. And so the red dragon here, the edge player, is going to choose in what order. I'm going to do the red dragon first. If you click resolve, it shows the maneuver, and your dragon automatically will perform that maneuver. So red did his, and that's a yellow maneuver of the same speed that the dragon had. So we'll see what happens when you have a maneuver that's different speed. But if it's the same speed, you just look at the color of the card. In this case, is a yellow card, and you put your counter in that difficulty. And with yellow, that means no effect. And so this is a 3-speed card with a 3-speed dragon. So perfect. It's yellow, no roll. In the case of white, white is also doing a 3-speed maneuver. So I can just look at the difficulty of the maneuver and say it's yellow, and it doesn't get modified by speed because it's the same speed that the dragon had to begin with. But now let's go to the other side. So what are the metallic guys here doing? So let's go with bronze first. So bronze is doing 4 forward, right? And that is a little trickier. It's a yellow maneuver, but it's a 1 speed higher than the speed that the dragon was carrying. So if you look here, it says, look, if you're going to do a maneuver that is 1 speed higher than before, it's going to be 1 more difficulty. The same thing if you're doing a maneuver that it's 2 speeds lower than the turn before, that will also increase your difficulty. While if you do a maneuver that is just 1 speed below the last turn speed, then it goes down 1 difficulty. So accelerating makes it more difficult. Braking hard makes it more difficult. Braking slowly actually makes it easier. And of course, if you have the same speed, then the difficulty will be just the color of the maneuver. In this case, this is a yellow maneuver, but because we're accelerating, we're doing 1 speed higher, it moves to red. You cannot do 2 speeds higher, you cannot do 3 speeds lower, right? Only what is allowed there in that text. Now, this dragon did a red maneuver. That is something stressful that can generate fatigue or even damage on your dragon. You are going to have to do a stress 3 test. A stress test is a flight test. Now, whether it's a flight or a potence test defines how difficult it is. In this game, every dragon has 4+, and therefore you can use these dice here, which have 3 dragon faces, to just any of the rolls of the game. And every time that you have a dragon face, it's a success. So in this case, still, it's a flight test, the 3 dice, where I'm trying to get successes, not to get tired. Now, some things may modify that. They never modify the difficulty, only modify the number of dice you roll. For example, if I had a 1 fatigue, you would be rolling 1 less die on any flight test. But in this case, this dragon is not fatigued, so it's going to roll its 3 dice. Okay. Perfect. So that die, he rolled 2 successes. With 2 successes, we go and we check the result. 2 successes is no penalties. So 2 or more, no penalties. The dragon keeps flying, and that's fine. If it had rolled only 1 success, we would have to gain 1 fatigue, but we didn't. Or if we had 0 successes, we would gain 1 fatigue and gain 1 wound. So you can actually get hurt by doing different difficult maneuvers. But in this case, this gentleman rolled 2 successes, no penalties. He keeps going. He did his maneuver. You always perform the maneuver, independently of how bad you roll. You might get hurt, fatigued, but you do the maneuver that you put. Now let's look at what Copper did. Copper did a 2 to the front. Now, this is a green maneuver, but it's a 1 speed lower than the speed that the dragon had. And as we said before, that means it actually makes it easier. So instead of being a green maneuver, it moves to a white maneuver. You can see that there are no actual white maneuvers in the board. The only way of making a white maneuver is doing a green maneuver, but being slightly decreasing speed. Now, when you do a green or a white maneuver, you actually are recovering fatigue. So once you have a tired dragon, that's what you want to do in order to get back in the game effectively. In this case, he would have regained 2 fatigues. So if he had been at fatigue 3, let's say, he would have to move it immediately to 1. But because he's at fatigue 0, this doesn't gain him anything. That's it. His flight phase is over. He didn't recover fatigue because he's already at 0. So with this, we've done the flight phase. Every dragon has executed their maneuver. We've done all stress tests that needed, and we also recovered fatigue for anyone that did a maneuver that allowed them to recover fatigue. Now we would move to the situation phase. I will skip the situation phase briefly because there's no hazards, but I'll come back to explain it a little bit later. After the situation phase, we have the combat phase. And the combat phase is where the edge comes into importance, because the combat phase, we will also start with the edge side. And while in the maneuver phase, that really didn't make a lot of difference because everyone knew what their maneuver was, here it will define the order in which we shoot. And so if I shoot and I defeat your dragon, you will not be able to shoot me back, right? So we're going to start with the edge side here. We have the white dragon and we have the red dragon. We're going to start with a white dragon, and you have 3 things that you can do with a dragon as actions. 4 if you count grabbing the card. But the normal 3 things that you do are either to, and I'll flip here, and you see every dragon has explained what they can do. You can do a breath attack, you can deploy a hazard, or you can use your action to dodge someone that is doing something nasty to you. In this case, white dragon is shooting first. Also, he knows that he is out of the range of the bronze dragon, because we'll see The bronze has lightning, and you see that lightning shoots in a straight line, right? So white here knows that he's out of the template of the bronze dragon, but he actually has the bronze dragon in sights, because the white dragon does a frost attack, and this cone of frost you see affects 1, 2, 3, and these two. So he's barely catching him on the edge of his cone of frost here. So the white dragon goes, yes, I'm going to do my action, and I'm going to breathe frost on bronze here. You actually, when you breathe on anyone that is in your template, right? So if there was more than one dragon, you would hit them both. And if there was a friend there, you would hit the friend too if you decide to shoot. So that's something you need to be careful. Now, poison dragon is the only one that doesn't shoot everyone in their template. They choose, and you'll see how, and you can read it specifically on their card. But for most dragons, like this one, you're going to shoot at everyone in their template. So here, white dragon does its attack. So bronze dragon is in sights and is being attacked. Therefore, bronze dragon has two options: either just take the hit or try to dodge. So let's go and see. Bronze dragon says, well, I cannot shoot at anyone anyway, so I'm going to actually take a dodge. How do I dodge? Well, very simple. You go to the dodge test, and the dodge test says, look, you're going to have to roll 3 dice against flight. And you have a -1 if you're at speed 0. So if you did maneuver speed 0, you're going to lose a die. Or -1 if you are being attacked from the rear. So what does attack from the rear mean? When you look at your dragon, the one that is receiving the attack, if the attack is coming from a dragon that is currently behind, so behind the line, completely behind the line that dissects the dragon, then it's a rear attack. So this, a dragon attacking from here would be from the front. A dragon attacking from here would clearly be from the back. A dragon attacking from here would be from the front because he's not fully behind the dissecting line. In this case, white dragon is obviously in the front, so bronze dragon has no negative because of his speed, no negative because of the other dragon being in front of him. The other thing that might be a negative would be if he had 1 fatigue, which he might have gained if he had missed his flight test, then he would have 1 less die to all flight tests. In this case, he's not, so he's going to roll his full 3 dice as a dodge. So bronze here is fighting for his life. He's going to roll 3 dice and try to dodge. No, so bronze did 0 successes in his dodge. And actually, I forgot one thing. He should have rolled 1 less die, because you also always have to check the breath attack. And some breath attacks give you a -1 to dodge or +1 to dodge at certain places. The cone of frost is difficult to dodge when you are in the fringes like this guy is. So he actually had to roll 2 dice instead of 3. So we're going to actually do it again. I'm going to put 2 dice and I'm going to roll. Okay, so he rolled 1 success. So let's see what happens with that. We go back to the dodge test, and the dodge test says, if you succeed, if you have 2 or more successes, you fully dodged the attack, nothing happens, you didn't get hit, but you do gain 1 fatigue because dodging is strenuous. If you have 1 success, you get hit, but the attack will have a -1 to its damage test. And if you do 0 successes, you fully get hit with no modifiers. Now, in this case, he did a partial dodge, right? So now I'm going to roll my damage. How much damage do I do? Well, I do what my template here says, which for that particular hex is a 2. So I would do 2 damage. But because he had 1 partial dodge, it reduces my damage in 1, so I'm only going to roll 1 die. You can see if I had 2 fatigues, that would take 1 more die away from all potence tests, which are damage tests, but in this case, that's not the case. So I'm going to roll my 1 damage. Yes, I put a hit. For each dragon face that you roll, the enemy will gain 1 wound. If you had more than 1 dragons, you do each attack separately. And also, anytime that they get hit, they gain 1 fatigue. There's always exceptions. The poison attack does not generate fatigue, and you can read that in the card when you're doing the attack. But here, for most hits, unless it's specified otherwise, you're gaining wounds equal to the number of successes and 1 fatigue for being hit. The other effect of being hit is in any turn where the side with the edge had suffered at least one hit that you didn't fully dodge, the edge is going to turn to the other side at the end of the phase. So no matter what, the other side could have hit you too, doesn't matter. If the side that had the edge got hit, the edge changes hands. So in this case, because they don't have the edge, this hit doesn't affect anything in that sense, but I did one wound, I put one fatigue, I'm happy with that. I put my action because I shot. Bronze tried to dodge, so it consumed its action too and will not be able to act on when it's the blunt side's turn. Now that was white. What about red? Well, red clearly cannot, and you can flip with the F there, cannot shoot anyone with its normal breath. Now, it can deploy a hazard. So a hazard is something that you shoot or you leave behind. In the case of the fireball, and you can read every hazard is different, the fireball, when you deploy it, moves 3 forward, hits anyone on the path. They could dodge, but hits anyone on the path, but then stays there. And in the next situation phase, it will move 3 more and then disappear. So you can get hit by the fireball when it is launched. Then anyone that moves into the fireball will get hit too. And then next turn, in the situation phase, the fireball will move 3 more and hit anyone on its path. So hazards are a cool way of you modifying what's going on. You're creating your own terrain. You're affecting what people will do next turn. Now, they also hit your friends. They can even hit yourself. So be careful of where you put your hazards. So that was red. He did an action, right? Because he deployed a hazard. And that's it for the edge side. Now let's go to the blunt side. Now, blunt side, we have the bronze here, and bronze is already acted, so there's not much to do. Copper could do nothing, or he can deploy a hazard. Now, again, this fireball or this hazard probably, I don't know if they affect the game too much in this situation because we're still far. They would be much more impactful if we were already intertwined. But you can see that the poison dragon can drop gas where it is and behind it. And basically what it will do is, remember, this will remain till the next situation phase. So during the next maneuver and flight phase, anyone that walks into any of these things is gonna get hit. Now, it's not, you don't get hit when I deploy it. So if you were right here behind me, or this dragon is not hitting itself, right? So no one gets hit by having a hazard deployed on them, except because of the fireball. But you do get hit when you move into the hazard. So basically next turn, if any dragon came rushing into the cloud, they would get hit. So in this case, everyone has acted, right? White did an attack, bronze dodged, then red deployed a hazard, and copper deployed a hazard. That is basically the combat phase. Now, there's one more thing. Oh, well, before I forget, if you roll 2 of the special dragons, the one with the circle, you've committed a critical on your opponent. And the opponent will have to roll a die. Now, the dice you can see that have the actual number that they rolled. And if that number, you will check this special hits chart, and you can see critically wounded, rider critically wounded, dragon stunned, rider dazed. You can read those effects in the cards themselves, and just apply those effects. They're very straightforward. And then finally, in the combat phase, one thing I didn't say, any 2 dragons that are in the same hex cannot act. They cannot breathe, they cannot deploy hazards, they cannot capture the caravan, and they cannot dodge. So try not to stack your own dragons on each other, because you're setting them up for being shot. When you have 2 dragons of different sides on the same hex, you will have a melee. That melee happens at the end of the turn. After everyone has acted, of course, the dragons that are in that hex cannot have acted, but then at the end, they will do a melee. The melee is very straightforward. You have it here, and you can follow the steps. Both players are going to roll a 2d6 flight, right? So if you have a fatigue, you lose 1 die as normal. But if not, you're rolling 2d6 versus flight. You have 1 extra die if you're the one that did the fastest maneuver of those 2 in this turn. So if one came with speed 2 and the other one came in with speed 3, the one with speed 3 will have an extra die. And then any of the dragons that did a 0 maneuver will have -1 die. So one side is going to be rolling 2 or 3 dice. The other might be rolling 2 or 1 die. Doesn't matter. Everyone rolls. And you count the number of successes for each dragon, right? If the two dragons don't roll any successes between the two of them, then they just fly past each other. If they two draw the same number of successes, then they have grappled each other. They crashed in the air. They're both going to do a lot of damage. It's a basic of 4. But after, you also have to apply the special skill of your, these are all lancers, the riders, which give you extra damage in both grapple and swipe. So you can go and check that out. But normally you do 4 damage to each other. Both dragons do a lot of damage to each other. If you do a swipe, that means one of the dragons had more successes than the other. Whether it's 1 success or 3, doesn't matter. You had more, you do a swipe, which means you attack the other dragon and he doesn't attack you back. Normally it's only 1 die of damage, but because you're all lancers here, that actually gives you +3. It's going to be 4 damage. So bottom line, when 2 dragons end in the same hex, probably one of them or both are going to die. So I've explained you the attacks, I've explained you how to deploy hazards, and I've explained you what happens when 2 dragons are on top of each other. That's the melee. That is basically that for the turn. At the end of the turn, you will do 2 things. First, you will move the cart 1 forward. It's trying to escape. It survived. No one picked it up this turn. And then you will go to your next turn button. The next turn button will do a couple of things at the same time. So it will pass the turn to the next turn, but it will also recover your actions. So everyone will go back in their actions and be ready to act in the next turn. And it recovers your card back, and it moves the meeple from your difficulty to your new speed. You can see these 2 dragons have done a 3-speed maneuver, so it moved back to 3. These dragons, you remember, one of them had done a 4-speed maneuver, and the other one had done a 2-speed maneuver. So the game already knows that, and it placed it exactly at the number of the maneuver that you did, and it gave you back the card. And with that, you're ready to play the next turn. Now, I will go back on time a little bit just to show the situation phase. If you were in the situation, I'm not going to play another turn, but if you were in the situation phase of the next turn, a few things would happen. This fireball, for example, would move 1, 2, 3, hit anyone in its path, and then go away. This one would have already done its thing and people that moved through it if they did. And so in situation phase, all of the hazards go away. If you had an ice bomb, it would explode. You can read that hazard per hazard. And these effects, like being stunned or dazed, most of them say in the card that they either go away in the situation phase or get flipped on the situation phase. So the situation phase is where all these hazards take effect and where you recover from different stuff. That, my friends, is all of the game. Those are all of the rules of the game. I will explain for a second the mission itself. As I said, the caravan is moving every turn, trying to escape. If there's a dragon over it at the end of the turn, then it doesn't move, it hunkers down. Any dragon that starts a turn on top of the caravan and performs a 0-speed maneuver will be eligible to do an action to grab the card. It still needs to do the action. So if you have 2 dragons over the card, no one can grab the card. But if you, when it's your moment to do an action, are there, you did a 0-speed maneuver and you started on top of the card, then yes, you can do your action and grab the card. After that, you're carrying it, and if you leave through your side of the game, of the table, you win. If that dragon leaves through another side of the table, you lose, so don't do it. If you have the card, you have to come back to your side of the table. If 9 turns go by and the caravan hasn't left the table, whoever holds it at the end of the game, at the end of turn 9, wins. If no one has the caravan at the moment of the end of the game, then the side that suffered the least dragons defeated wins, no matter who killed, because there's friendly fire here. If you're the side that had the least amount of dragons defeated, you win. And of course, if they have the same amount of dragons and no one has the card, it's a tie. Now, one more thing with the card is if a dragon carrying the card is killed, then you replace of course, the dragon is defeated, he leaves the game. Oh, something I didn't say. Dragons have 4 wounds. And so every time that someone makes you a wound, you're putting your wounds here. Whenever you get to 4, the dragon is defeated. You take off the hex of the dragon, you put it back here to show he's out of the game. If you had, let's say that bronze here was carrying the caravan. Usually once you grab it, we put it here so that we know that you have it. And let's say that white killed him with this final shot. Then, okay, we would go, let's say that we went to 4 wounds, he's dead, and then the caravan gets placed where he was. I think it was here. but it's in the air. And it will remain in the air for 2 full turns. So this is a partial turn, it doesn't count. You'll have 1 full turn, and then at the end of the second full turn after it remained in the air, if no one caught it, it crashes into the ground, dies, no one has the caravan. During those 2 turns, anyone that is in that hex with a speed of 2 or below can do an action to grab it. And if that, then the game continues with that dragon carrying the caravan. And that, my friend, is the game. We've gone over planning, flight, situation, and combat phases. You know how to pass to the next turn. You know when your dragons get defeated, and you know how to win the game by completing the missions. The only things you need from rules really are these 2 pages, this one that describes different types of breaths and hazards and the different types of test, and this one that has the maneuvers of your dragons. I hope you enjoyed the game. Please leave us comments of what you think and things that you think we should improve in the module, and of course subscribe to the module itself. Thank you very much and have a great day.